Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Zoho Live. Today we are going to talk to Morris Sinclair, a business development manager with Agile Capability, an organization that helps transform businesses by helping them adopt agile strategies. So, I was asking a friend of mine to teach me a bit about this whole agile project management side of things. And he pointed me to a website that read this. I'm going to read that out now. Agile project management is like tasting the batter before you cook it. If you don't, a lot of effort can go waste over a pinch of salt. Sometimes, when my grandma finds that the batter is salty, she adds in a bit of another ingredient to save the dish. So that, in short, is agile project management, but that's just from me. We're gonna hear it from the horse's mouth.
Tell us a bit about what is Agile methodology and how is it so popular, Morris?
It came about I would say 20 years ago. The phrase was coined by a group of software developers, and it's really the process of putting projects into small chunks of work so that they deliver value to businesses in frequent small deliveries called features, right? So traditional methodology to manage projects, that was basically called a waterfall. If you envision a waterfall, the waterfall cascades down. All the requirements of the project are put together, the design, the features, everything will be laid out before the project even began. So even the development and the testing. So if the project took a year, the business would not see any tangible value until the very end. But things could change,
Right.
as we recently have seen in the past couple of months. So agile methodology, it makes it much easier to get value and put something that is usable and make necessary changes to adapt to current conditions. Items that are being created using small chunks of work are called sprints, and it's a great technique to use when business needs are changing frequently, as happens right now. So with larger projects, those sprints can be, say for example, 2 weeks or no more than a month. And then you can focus on what the business needs now. And if there are any changes, those changes can be quickly accommodated and ensure value is always being received.
I see. I see.
So that's really what it's all about.
Okay. Okay. And also, Morris, I think there is a common, let's say, misconception or preconception that agile management is predominantly or only for software companies and maybe not for the other industries. And is that the case? Is that true? If not, where is this misconception coming from?
Well, yeah, I can understand where that misconception came about, because it was really developed for the software industry with what they called the Agile Manifesto. A group of software leaders, coined the term, as I was saying before. And it can really be used for all kinds of projects, non-IT projects, complex projects, and projects that are suitable, for example, are facility moves for a company, or mergers and acquisitions, for example, reorganizations in a company, events, or changing business processes within a department. And now a lot of companies are moving from in-house, where everybody works together, all to remote environments. So many companies are now having to adopt agile methodologies to make those transitions. And anywhere where there are projects that are usable, something, product or service has to be implemented or produced in a very short period of time. That can be used for agile.
I see. I think you briefly touched upon agile management and remote work, which is going to be my next question. So, given that a lot of companies, like you said, have already started to work remotely, and considering the fact that the remote work culture itself is here to stay, how can agile way of
Yes.
managing projects help teams work remotely, even better?
Well, that is an interesting question because these are very interesting times, and we're seeing an unprecedented number of businesses, from solo entrepreneurs to huge conglomerates, suddenly shifting the way how they work. And that process alone can be very, very challenging. So there are various tools with the Agile methodology. Agile methodology is really a collection of different frameworks, and these are tools and techniques that can help those remote teams. The best thing about Agile is that a team they can self-organize, which results usually in higher accountability. Um, and when the teams are given sort of an independence to decide what their next product increment would be, the results they tend to be higher. So it really increases productivity quite dramatically. It's surprising. So the
I
agile
see.
way is designed to have, short daily meetings along with regular reviews and retrospectives. So each individual understands what their role is perfectly, and then they're able to continuously improve, see what their impediments are, and then continuously grow. And for remote teams, there are different methodologies within Agile. There's one called Kanban, and Kanban was adopted from a method that Toyota used. And this would be a good option for remote teams who work together. Kanban helps to provide like a view of the whole thing, where each component, everybody can know exactly where each component is along the way of the project journey. And the key thing with working remotely is that its ability to collaborate, regardless of what time zones you're in. As long as you can coordinate your collaboration, then everything should be fine. Even though the teams are dispersed, it makes life much easier to have all these tools under one umbrella. It's almost like you're in the office,
I
but
see.
then you have everything on your laptop now. And you know what? Your
Oh,
company produces a great product for that, Zoho Remotely. And I just
they
started using
do.
that because Zoho Remotely has everything all under one umbrella. Zoho Meetings, Zoho Webinar, and there are even tools for Agile as well.
Amazing. You want to talk a bit about how your experience of Zoho remotely has been? Or wait a minute.
Well,
I'm going to have to save that question for later. I'm going to
oh, sure.
ask you about an even important question. You mentioned about the frameworks inside Agile. You even talked about Kanban. So, what
Yeah.
are the different frameworks inside Agile methodology itself? And how can businesses benefit from these kind of frameworks at a time that is so uncertain, like you said? And I also hear that some of these frameworks might also help solve problems with with limited resources in an innovative way. So tell us a bit about those frameworks, Morris.
Okay, so there are a few different frameworks within the Agile methodology system. There is, of course, Scrum, which is the most popular, and Scrum is really what most people are probably familiar with. Scrum originally got its name from rugby, where rugby teams get together and they have a sort of quick meeting before they go out and they make the plays. So that's really where that came from. And Scrum, a
Oh,
team is usually anywhere plus or minus 7 plus or minus 2, so 5 to 9 people, and they're short iterations or sprints. They can be little as a week, and at the end of each sprint, a usable product or feature is released. And then the Scrum focuses on servant leadership, where there's a Scrum Master that is leading the team, but they're also serving all of their needs at the same time. And that's a new buzzword lately, servant leadership. Whereas Kanban, which is another, so we have Scrum, then we have Kanban, and Kanban encourages flow on a Kanban board. And there's a
I see.
limited amount of items that can be worked on at the same time. So that increases the productivity and reduces the amount of time that is spent on the development of the product. So you can sort of see the whole project, but you're also working on one thing at a time. And then there are other methodologies. There's extreme programming, which is used in software development, and a few other ones. But Kanban and Scrum are the main features, especially for remote working environments.
I see. I see. And how do you differentiate between whether a business should go with Scrum or Kanban or the other framework that you mentioned about? How do you actually make that decision, Lotus?
Well, for example, my company helps organizations decide what they want to do. So we have a meeting, and it really kind of all depends on how the teams are able to self-organize and work together. And that's one of the key things with agile methodologies is self-organization. So the teams look at their capabilities, their technologies, their resources, and and it really kind of all depends a lot on the project. But as long as these frameworks, these methodologies are kept within the I would say the ramifications of whether it's Scrum or Kanban, they work pretty well. So it really kind of all depends on what the project is and what the achievement is and how long the project will be. A few different reasons.
I see. I see. Thank you.
Mhm.
We talked about the different frameworks and we talked about how Agile can help teams work remotely. Now, from the way you talk about Agile, it looks to me that the core philosophy of managing projects the Agile way is to embrace change. And
Yes.
of course, we live in a time that's like much unprecedented. So, tell us a bit about how how this element of change can gel well with agile strategies. Also, if agile helps change things so dramatically and drastically, how does people meet their deadline?
Well, it's from the word alone, just agile, the root word of agile. It means the ability to move quickly. So if you're an agile person, you can move quickly and, change is constant. And it's really kind of almost impossible to understand what's happening with technology these days unless we look back at what we call Moore's law. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but many people might be familiar with what Moore's law is. Moore's law states that every 2 years the processing power of computers get twice as fast at half the cost. Just think of the technology that we had, 5 years ago compared to now.
Mhm.
And that was coined by the internet founder George Moore when he made this observation way back in 1965, and that has remained constant today. As a matter of fact, right now, just think of this, Banati. We create as much information as we did from the dawn of civilization to 2003 in just one
Mhm.
day. So
Right.
can you imagine the amount of data that we're creating in just one day from the dawn of time up until about 2003? Now, all that, and that's going to be doubling very soon. So we're going through some very rapid changes in our times, and businesses have to stay ahead of the curve because one of the easiest
Mhm.
ways to do is to break down, and everybody else is ahead of the curve. So
Mhm.
that's why it's important to break business processes into chunks that can embrace those changes. And
Mhm.
as things happen, we just go ahead and make the change. And without going into too much major technical details, just look at our personal lives. Every human being on earth right now, we have gone through some major changes. So this huge paradigm shift would be much easier if we can break it down into chunks. And that's exactly what Agile does. Mhm.
Beautiful, amazing. Talk to us a bit about the challenges that companies run into as they are adopting agile strategies, Morris. You would have worked with a
Mhm.
lot of businesses, and I'm sure at
Yes.
one point or that they would have faced some, hindrances also. It could be because of people side of things, it could be because of the technology side of things, whatever it is. So tell us a bit about that. Where is it that people find it tough to start going agile?
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, what just inherently people don't necessarily like to embrace changes. So a lot of times when you try to introduce this, people don't really understand what agile is. So we have to kind of get everybody on the same page. And when you're working with large organizations, it can be difficult. But one of the key things about agile is the ability for you give teams the capability of self-organizing. So when people are sort of given, I would say, their own domain to kind of make their own decisions as opposed to being micromanaged every time, it makes it a bit easier. So another key
Mhm.
thing of agile is communication. So you have to make sure that you're communicating with each other very, very well, and that's exactly what I basically would do as what we call a scrum master. I would go into an organization and I would assist them go through those and smooth out those various misunderstandings so that we can all be on the same page and we can begin the work. And then once people understand that, then people feel more empowered and we are willing to go ahead.
I see. And would this Scrum Master have some formal sort of a training, or will they be able to get to know it as and when they start using the, I don't know, the technology that supports Agile platform, maybe?
That's a very good question. There is an organization. It's just go if you go to scrum.org, and that is an organization that explains everything. But as Scrum Master, you get a certified training. You go through a training process and you pass an exam, and it's not an easy exam. And with this exam, you get certified to be a Scrum Master. And then there are different levels that you can get to in your certifications that make you more and more agile, let's say, in in the capabilities of doing things with the company. So yes, there are certifications, and there are. You can either go in and you train companies to have a particular group in the organization that are Scrum Masters, or you can outsource it and then you can do it for them.
I see. Amazing. Can you you mentioned about small businesses, big businesses, large enterprises of sort. Is there like a differentiation between Agile works best for startups or SMEs, or it works actually best for large enterprises, or is there anything like that?
Not really, but Scrum is really the most popular framework. And that means that, you can do something with a team of as little as 5 people to work on a project. Whereas if you have a large corporation, you can break those teams up into many different teams, but you all work basically from the same, what we call product backlog or sprint backlog, that has all the information that you need, and you're able to pull from that based on tasks that you need to do. So it really doesn't matter the size of the company, but it really is more effective the more complex the project is actually.
I see. I see. I see. And at what point does projects or businesses tend to think that maybe they're doing it wrong and maybe they have to sort out to agile strategies?
Well, that's an interesting question as well, because I think that again nowadays companies have to stay ahead of the curve. Companies have to really start to embrace their technologies and embrace, a different way of looking at things. Before you put your budget together and you make sure that all of the items are met on the budget, and you have your deadlines met and so on and so forth. And I think that once we are able to see how Agile can increase employee productivity, it can also help to increase morale in a company. It helps with higher accountability. Then I believe that a company would be more likely to embrace the Agile methodology. The bottom line is that all the companies, they want to be as productive as possible for as little money as possible, for as little cost as possible. So this is really when we show them how this can help them to do that.
I see. Amazing. So can you quote a real-time example of a project or a business that specifically benefited because of their agile strategies?
Oh yeah, there are several companies. I know that your company, for example, Zoho is one. Um, and the interesting thing is, like in the very beginning of this video, you talked about the Jugaad process, which is a sort of informal version of Agile, with many people in India with adopt. So it's almost as if the world now is formalizing that process and calling it Agile, even though it has been around for a very long time. But most of the big corporations these days, especially the technology-based companies, Google and Facebook and so on, they have systems within their operations. But a lot of logistics companies as well that have to move goods and services around the world, companies that deal with having to organize teams, airlines, for example. I personally worked in an airline for a few years, and they have to have agile practices within those organizations in order to, to meet demands.
I see. From the way you talk about Agile and even Scrum for that matter, Morris, it feels like Agile can not just help with project management, but it can, to an extent, maybe even set the tone of the culture of a company. Have you felt that way?
Yes. You see, what I realize with Agile and with Scrum is it's sort of, though it's a blanket term for all these methodologies, and I was saying that teams are self-organized. It also gives a lot of independence, like I was saying, to people, and the employee morale tends to really improve. People are understanding what they're doing more. They are able to sort of
Communicate,
have
probably.
a bit of self accountability to what they're doing. And overall, I believe that as time goes on, companies begin to adopt these methodologies. It's not just for project management; it can be even used for your personal life, organizing your home, organizing your family, organizing a family reunion. Because of the way how it encourages the inherent human need for even though nowadays we're all isolated, it encourages the human need for social interaction, let's say, and reflection, patting yourself on the back, let's say. So it encourages it. So there's a psychological part of it that that is in there somewhere.
Absolutely, because if it can improve self accountability and if it can encourage teams to communicate regularly, even though we are all quarantined and a lot of cities are locked down, I think technology has always been able to give us a hand and bridge that sort of a gap. And today you are in other side of the globe, and I'm talking to you from India, and we are doing this through technology. So if Agile can benefit a lot to work remotely and to sort of like kickstart a lot of business that are struggling at this point, that would be really great. And thank you so much for your time, Morris. I'll see if we have any questions here. All right. None that I know yet, but maybe we spoke a lot and maybe we have to give people the time to let it sink in. So if you have any questions, you can write to us at mea-solutions@zohocorp.com. I'm going to repeat that. It's MEA, MEA-solutions@zohocorp.com. It will be pasted in the comment box below as well. We will also be pasting a survey link to the comment box in whichever social channel you're watching this from. So I think that's it. We'll see you next time in another different episode. So if you have any suggestions for us on what topics do you like to hear from us, you can leave a message as well. Thank you so much for your time, Morris. It was really great talking to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for your time. And I really, of course, everybody definitely should try out the Zoho Remotely product just to sort of get an idea of what you can do with Agile. Zoho.com/sprint. Yes. Thank you so much.
Amazing. That's what we're going to end this with. Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care. Bye now.